Before we start, if there's anybody who hasn't signed in and left your email address, you may want to do that. It's a nice way for us to be able to get in touch with you, particularly as we start our strategic planning process. It'll be a way that we can keep you updated about that and about other things in the district. Shall we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Al, can we have a roll call?
Mary Jane Brady.
Present.
Terry Carney.
Present.
Al Pfeifhaus. Present. Eric Wegener.
Present.
Leanne Charlotte.
Present.
Mark Berry.
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present. Thank you. The purpose of this meeting is to allow the public to make comment on the proposed 2012-2013 school budget. People desiring to speak when the time comes for public comment should address the board, state your name and address, and then you may step to the podium and make your comments. Please keep your comments to 5 minutes. Written comment may also be handed to me for reading to the group. Okay, first we'll have comments from the administration.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jean Sophie. I'm the superintendent of schools. I want to just briefly mention that as a school district, we really try to role model very respectful behavior, so this will be a very respectful hearing. Oftentimes we will have kids here for different events, and we want them to feel very comfortable. Obviously, we don't have kids here this evening. One of the comments to get started, I just want to read off one of the Q&As that's on our school district, is the board tonight will be voting on a budget that uses funds levied in December of 2011, the funds that we have on hand. The mathematical difference between revenues and expenditures results in surplus. Since revenues are already established for this budget year, the way to reduce that surplus at this point is to spend more this fiscal year, something neither the board nor the administration intend to do. The Board of Education is considering all options when it looks at the levy issue this fall. And the levy issue this fall will be for the December 2012 levy, as they review the fund balance, the budget, expenses, and enrollment. The December 2012 levy will impact the tax bills that all of you receive in May of 2013 and will generate the revenues for the 2013-14 school budget. The board has heard the concerns of some of the community, and as representatives of the community will address these concerns in October and November as we discuss the levy. And we encourage everyone to come to those meetings. The discussion meetings are at the Committee of the Whole meetings. We also encourage all of you to be actively involved in our strategic planning process, and there'll be a lot of information coming out on that in the near future. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Jane Lair, our Director of Business.
Thank you. Okay, I will try to be as brief as I can so we can get to public comment. The fiscal year 2000 budget is a balanced budget, therefore no budget deficit reduction plan needs to be filed with the state of Illinois. The beginning fund balances that are reflected in the budget document currently are estimated, as we've not yet received our completed audit for fiscal year 2012. I anticipate we'll receive that audit and it will be presented to the board in October. As of the fiscal year 2011, which is the last audit available, our total year-end fund balance for all operating funds, which include education, operation and maintenance, transportation, IMRF, and working cash, was just over $12.6 million. Our annual expenses for the same year were $13.9 million. Our year-end fund reserve represented 90% of our annual expenditures. This year's budget that you will be acting on at the regular meeting includes tax revenues generated from the 2011 tax levy as was filed in December of 2011. The final tax rate revenue amounts from that levy we learn the following April. However, we begin the development process, or the budget development process, in January, prior to the beginning of the new fiscal year in July. A large portion of the salaries in the budget are determined by the existing collective bargaining agreement with the Teachers Council. So they're determined. Any decisions to add or eliminate staff usually occurs in March, and I'm really addressing the budget process and the budget development right now. So staffing changes are usually made in March, certainly no longer later than April, and those are timelines mandated by law. Benefits are budgeted based on the same collective bargaining agreement, and once we know the renewal, which we usually know in May, then we know what our benefit budget will be for the following school year. For services, supplies, and equipment, we hold meetings with administration, maintenance, technology, some other team leaders within the schools, and continue to develop those budgets over the course of several discussions over late winter through early spring. As noted in the budget documents provided to the board last month, there is an overall increase in the education fund, which is our largest fund by far, of 9% over the previous year's actuals. And the primary areas for those increases occur in staff development services, specifically in the subject areas of language arts, social studies, and math, assessment and testing services, our strategic planning, which we budgeted for this year, our new website development, and new software licenses and agreements. Also, some large increases were seen in supplies, and those were for curriculum materials and software in the same subject area reading as language arts, social studies, and math, and this is due to the new curriculum cycle that we adopted this past year, and we're playing a little catch-up with materials and training in those subject areas. So I don't anticipate these large expenses to continue from year to year. In areas of equipment, we did have to replace several outdated servers throughout the district, purchase some other technology equipment, which is really replacement costs. Enrollments are down, as we know, more than we anticipated. However, as I indicated previously, we cannot make changes in staffing at this time due to state law. The board does have to adopt its annual budget by September 30th each year. You can amend the budget at any time during the course of the year. To do so, you have to follow the same process. We have to present a budget for 30 days. You have to hold another public hearing, and then you can take action and amend the budget. However, remember that this budget reflects the revenues generated by last year's tax levy. That's it.
Just a couple. For those of you that we ran out of handouts, I will make sure that all of the handouts are on our website tomorrow. If you've paid attention to our website, it's not very easy to move around and find things on. Around November 1st, we will have a brand-new website. Material will be a lot easier to find, and the materials that we talk about during not only the board meetings, but other materials that are relevant and useful will be posted on the website at that time, so that information will be available.
At this time, we would take public comment. Again, if you would like to address the board, please state your name and address. And do we have forms for people to fill with their name and address? Okay.
Hi.
Hello?
My name is John Morrison. I live in Lake Bluff. I've lived here for just about 16 years. In full disclosure, I'm a member of the Concerned Citizens of Lake Bluff group, and I'm also president of the library board. I'm here to present a case for moving forward in a positive
You
way.
just also state your address before you start.
220
Thank you.
East Prospect.
Thank you.
I hope we can go forward in a positive manner that will produce results for the citizens of Lake Bluff and also for the board. We're all aware of the declining elementary school population over the past several years. We've gone from 1,100, roughly 1,100, slightly more than 1,100 in 2003 to roughly 850 this year. It's a decline of 23%. This trend is expected to continue. We all know at the same time that the school board budget has increased, as Jane pointed out earlier, at 9.6% for this year, the education portion of that budget, 9.6% this year, while the staff remains constant and the enrollment is down year over year. The reserve levels reached an amount that we believe to be exceedingly excessive. We're adding close to $1 million to the reserve, bringing the total amount in reserve to, I think this number is correct, roughly $15.2 million. At the same time, fewer young families are moving into Lake Bluff, as evidenced by the smaller enrollments. Older empty nesters can no longer afford the increased property taxes that they're facing, and they're moving out in increasing numbers. School board budget represents 42% of our tax bill. Late last week, several of us met with Dr. Sophie and several board members to present our concerns in detail and to offer some solutions. They appear to be open to involving community members, as you said earlier. I'm glad to see that. And Dr. Sophie remarked to me personally that one of the reasons she was hired was to address some of the issues that we've raised. Allow me to outline the thrust of our recommendations. Create a strategic plan. You've already alluded to that, and I think that's a first, a little late, but a good step forward. Examine the needs and requirements related to facilities, education, spending, debt, and the use of reserves to be developed with the involvement of community members and to include non-users, those of us who don't have children in the elementary school. Number 2, reduce the tax levy in the next cycle. I know you can't do anything this time. It's a done deal. But in determining the upcoming levy, the board should use the reserves, in my opinion, to fund expenditures. This would result in a much lower tax rate. There are upcoming meetings, as I think Mary Jane pointed out, in October and November where the tax levy will be discussed, and I urge all the residents to attend those meetings if possible. Establish a reasonable reserve. Number 3, establish a reasonable reserve amount based on realistic needs. Now, state standards and local communities have guidelines that would indicate that not less than 25% or more than 40% of expense or cash on hand representing approximately 90 to 180 days of operation is reasonable. The current reserve of $15.2 million significantly exceeds these standards as set by the state. For Lake Bluff, that would indicate a reserve in the neighborhood of $5 or $6 million, so we're about $10 million over reserved. Number 4, examine the budget for the next year to bring it more in line with the reduced enrollment. We understand that the budget for the upcoming year has already been levied, and the vote you take tonight is a done deal. But that does not mean that you have to spend all the money that's been levied to you. I realize it goes into the reserve, but we can use those reserves in future purposes for writing down expenses or using them against expenses. Number 5, there should be no new construction until a written strategic plan is in place to justify the expenditure. We strongly recommend that you postpone the potential $2 million expenditure to build out the choral room and add enhancements to the front entrance. I know there are some other factors to that expenditure as well, and I know it's under study right now. The excessive reserves are very tempting to use since they require no voter approval. But we would urge you to be patient until you have a full plan in place that can be justified to us, the taxpayers, and to yourselves, your taxpayers as well, of course. Number 6, improve transparency and communication with residents through a regular communication device. Gene, you and I talked about a newsletter. I shared with you the library newsletter. I know you're going to enhance your website. That's terrific. We need more opportunity to be able to get to information in an easy fashion. The residents of Lake Bluff want assurances that you are aware of our concerns and that you're prepared to take action that addresses the conflict between declining enrollment and increasing expenses. You have an opportunity to set an example for other taxing agencies, both the library, which as I said earlier, I'm involved with, and the Park District turned down increased tax levies in the past to send a message to taxpayers that we are working hard to protect their interests. All board members are in place to protect the interests of someone, whether they be shareholders or taxpayers. That is our obligation. Finally, a great education and fiscal responsibility go hand in hand. Money thrown at education does not necessarily provide better outcomes. I think you all know that, as well as I do. Despite the excessive budgets of the past, the Lake Bluff Middle School received a no on your report card regarding a lack of yearly progress. We can do better. I believe that Lake Bluff has reached a tipping point. You have an opportunity to set a great example of how we can provide an outstanding education while at the same time demonstrate the sensitivity and concern for the taxpayers that put you into office. I look forward to working with the board and to address the concerns that we've all discussed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ed Holstein. I've been a resident of Lake Bluff since 1947. I live at 713 Ravine Avenue. I have served on the Lake Bluff Village Board from 1983 to 1991. I was also a member of Lake Forest High School Board from 1993 through the year 2000 and served as its president for the last 4 years I was on that board. I am, in interest of self-disclosure, I'm also a part of this taxpayer watchdog group, if we have self-described ourselves. And we started off a couple of years ago. We got together as a result of some things that were happening on the park board that we didn't think were quite appropriate. And we got more involved. Specifically, it was the referendum for the swimming pool. And became quite concerned about what they were trying to do. After we completed that, we started looking around at other things, and we looked at the school board. And some of the initial things we looked at were the first contract negotiations that you were going through with the teachers union at that time, and weighed in on that. And quite honestly, since we've been digging deeper, I think it's fair to say that we've become quite concerned over some of the things that we've learned. John Morozin has just given you some of the things, some of the perspectives that we've come up with. I have some data that I would like to share with you, and this won't take very long. Just last night, I went back to some of my tax records. Took out my tax bills for 2001 and 2011. Here's what I found. These are percent changes from 2001 tax bill to my 2011 tax bill, which should be representative of pretty much everybody in the community. My total tax bill, including all taxing districts, the village, the school districts, mosquito abatement, everything that could possibly be on there, during that 10-year period went up 64.4%. I then looked, just broke out School District 65 in Lake Bluff, and discovered, not including the pension line item, which I realize that you have no discretionary impact over. That tax portion of my tax bill went up 94.9% in that 10-year period. I then looked at the total tax bill less School District 65. In other words, I took the total bill, subtracted 65, the rest of it, all taxing bodies, went up 48.5%. Put another way, School District 65 taxes have increased at approximately 2 times the rate of all other taxing bodies, districts, including Lake Forest High School, District 115, in Shields Township over this period. Your tax, everybody else's tax bill should reflect similar changes as mine. All this while enrollment was dropping by 24%. I don't know how to convey this, but I was alarmed. And I've looked at a lot of the numbers, and the declining enrollment, the increasing cost per student, and I can only tell you that I'm alarmed, and I think you should be too. Has served on the high school board for 8 years and president of that board. I understand how difficult it is to be a school board, that you have several different constituencies that you represent. Number one, the students. Number two, the parents, the faculty, the administration, but you also represent the taxpayers. And I would submit to you that you have not done a good job of representing the taxpayers. We all know stories of people moving out of Lake Bluff because they can buy an equal house in Lake Forest at much less the tax rate. So I hope you start taking the taxpayers into consideration in part of your deliberations, which is apparent to me has not happened over the last 10 years. I understand you've gone through administration changes, board changes, but at some time, the buck has to stop somewhere. I'm alarmed. I hope you are. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, old friends.
Hi, Eric.
I'm Eric Grenier, a resident of Lake Bluff since 1994. I live at 617 East Scranton Avenue in Lake Bluff. I have served on this board from the year 2003 till the year 2011, I guess it was. And I just wanted to give just a little bit of a brief perspective on what I'm seeing. I'm not a member of the taxpayer committee. I certainly know a lot of those folks, and a lot of them I've known since not only being a resident, but being on the board, and many have participated in school projects. And one main thing that I can say is that these are supporters of our schools, the folks who are bringing this up. And that's good news, because I'm not hearing the kind of negativity that we may have heard back in 2003 when we barely passed a referendum. So I wanted to pass that on to this board. I also understand that by asking this board to bring the fund balance down, that this is a very difficult thing for a school district to do. From my experience being on finance committees and living some number of hours with Jane and her staff managing the budget. And the difficulty of bringing the fund balance down is that what we're asking the board to do is to deliberately put the district into deficit spending. And that is a thing that our processes, the process of funding schools in Illinois, are not designed to do. They're designed to stop that from happening. So not only is it hard to do, but it's also a big risk. And wanted you to know that many people in the community understand this. When you bring the rate down deliberately to a deficit spending situation, there are very few things you can do to get that rate back up again once you've reached your target. But I also want to say, as a taxpayer and a member of the community, and reading things that have been put out there by these folks and talking to other residents, I believe this is the right thing to do for this board, as scary as that seems. What's going to have to happen is the board's going to have to take a big risk, put it in that situation, and trust that the community will be there when it's time to adjust the rate back up when perhaps we've gotten closer to the target that we need to. I know school funding is a little bit like an ocean tanker. You can't stop it very easily, and you also can't start things very easily when you need to without a referendum. That's what it's designed. So my simple message is I'm encouraging the board to take this step, to be open with the community about the difficulty of this and the risks of this, and then also in turn, we as a community need to let you know that if you have our backs now, when many people in the community need tax relief, that we, as we have in the past, will have your back at that time. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
My name is David McIlvain. I live at 318 Ravine Forest Drive. I've been a resident of Lake Bluff for 24 years. Now, I had the privilege of serving as a village trustee for 4 of those years, about 10 years ago. So I have some kind of a feel of the type of things that you're dealing with and how you need to balance one against the other, make the right things happen. I just want to focus on a couple of numbers, which to me are crucial and tell a very important story. One number is the average cost per pupil, which has risen dramatically over the last 2 years, partially because of declining enrollment, and partially because of $1 million increase in the expense budget. You put those two together and you get the inevitable, result, $19,200 per student. That is an absolutely staggering number, to me. I'm not sure that everybody is quite as alarmed about that as I think we all should be. Before coming over here this evening, I was watching Channel 5 News, and there was a comment or a question, I believe it was directed to Mitt Romney, about how he had the privilege of going to school in a Detroit suburb where the price for a 4-year education was $38,000. Big number. And I put that two and two together. That's 2 years of expenditure that we have here and now for elementary school education in Lake Bluff, Illinois. It just blows my mind. Just blows my mind. The other number is, of course, the level of the reserves is a staggering figure, now over $15 million. I think, kind of a little bit disagreement with the previous speaker. I don't think there's any real risk at all in taking that down a significant amount. But I stand here and I strongly encourage you to take a step in the right direction prior to or coincident with the next levy that you apply by at least $1 million. Reduce the taxpayers' burden by at least $1 million from the level that they paid last year. Could be done. I don't think there's any risk whatsoever. So thank you for your attention. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Do we have other comments?
My name is Neil Dahlman, 711 Bluff Road, and I'm also part of the taxpayers group. I just have a couple of comments, and I'll be shorter than the others. A lot of the realtors in town that are involved in selling houses are saying that it's gotten more and more difficult for them to sell homes to families that have young children because they can't pay the taxes. So that very well may be part of the reason as to why our enrollment has been dropping. And of course, as the taxes go up, we're going to get fewer and fewer kids. So that trend is very likely to continue. Second part of what I want to mention is that I understand that you're in the process of creating a strategic plan. Part of a strategic plan should be a reserve study, or you can call it a facilities plan, whatever the name is. My business for many years has been developing buildings and developing annual operating plans, including reserve studies. And we generally have 3 parts to a reserve study. And I'm concerned that the previous strategic plan really did not have, that I've seen on the website, did not have what I would call a reserve study. A reserve study would have a section about major repairs and maintenance of existing buildings, like that sometime within the next 20 years, the roof is going to go on a building. So you should be planning in advance to pay for that when the time comes. Another part is the possibility of needing additions or new buildings. For instance, where the school district offices are located. Maybe that's the right place. Maybe they should be on one of the other campuses. And if they're on another campus, maybe you need a building to house them. The third part is that when we do a reserve study is to plan on paying down the debt. And that's a very possible option of where you have excess funds, depending on how the bond issue is structured, is perhaps half of the debt could be paid off. If there's at the bottom line, when we have 15 million in reserves, it very well may be that we should have, when you get a reserve study done, it very well may be that it's very justified to have that much money in reserves. But until you have a plan, you just don't know. And so it just seems excessive until we actually put a plan in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Hi, I'm Bob Sweet from 325 Wimbledon Court, and I'm representing just myself. I read materials from the school board and from the taxpayers group, and like most people here, I just paid my property taxes a few weeks ago. It's huge. I mean, you're over 40% my property tax. And, we really need to do something about that. The burden's getting quite large. And having a reserve as large as there is right now, I'm afraid that you're just, sometimes the government, people have money, it's like, we got to spend it. It's there. Well, you don't have to spend it. You can return it to the taxpayers, whether that's a rebating taxpayers or lower levies or whatever. That's our money. That's my money. That's their money. Everybody's money out here. That's who you're spending. And I appreciate, all the volunteers on the board. I realize that sometimes it's a thankless job, and coming to meetings like this, you have to listen to people griping and this and that, and I understand that. But, that's my concern as a taxpayer. And everyone here, worked hard for that money. And we want you to spend it wisely and return it to us when you don't need to spend it. That's all.
Thank you.
My name is Peter Sexton, 38 East Hawthorne Court, Lake Bluff, a resident for 39 years, coming up 40. My concern is obviously the reserves. And if I read the budget to be and the money in hand and do the math, you're carrying more than a year's budget doing nothing, except taking out of the taxpayer's wallet. There are a number of, I didn't realize that we could pay down bonding with this surplus. I think that's a great idea. But looking at the cost per student of our budget, $19,200 to provide services for the current enrollment. Is that correct?
Sorry.
Well, I'll assume it was since nobody said no.
Because I was writing.
That's $19,200, of which less than half is actually producing educational services, facilities, and advancement. Give us a break. As a taxpayer, as a citizen, as a businessman who knows the difference between deficit and surplus. I served on the village board for 8 years as a trustee, 6 years as the clerk, and 1 term on the Shields Township Board. I understand municipal money. I do not understand greed and hoarding and not knowing what to do with what you've got. Please give us a break. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
My name's Porter Bogus. I'm at 221 East North Avenue. Going back to Neil's comment and bringing up with the budget, and as far as planning, I was hoping that, I don't know the terms and the covenant of the bond, but refunding it early is usually not the case. By creating a sinking fund would probably be, as part of the plan, would be a great idea. I'd encourage you to use the excess funds to pre-fund that bond so it keeps the future levies considerably at bay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. It's now time for comments from board members. I would start by making a couple of comments that we've also included in our Q&A. Back in 2003, the Lake Bluff School District was considered on financial watch, and in 2004 was on early warning. Those were the deficit spending years that you heard about earlier tonight. Voters generously approved an operating rate increase at that time, and school boards then and since have consciously made the decision to increase our surplus funds. Prior to the referendum, the district had negative fund balances in the education and the operation and maintenance funds for at least the 2 preceding fiscal years. And we have some graphs on our website and some other information, really all of this information and more on our website. Again, some of it's not real easy to find, but a lot of it is very easy to find either on our board page or our business office page. So we would encourage you to look at some of that information also. We will be discussing all of these things in our October and November Committee of the Whole meetings and also in our business meetings on the 4th Tuesdays. But we do encourage you to come and listen. Those are board business meetings, so there will be time for comment at the beginning of the meetings, as there always is. They are not open discussion meetings, they're not public forum meetings, but they certainly are meetings where you can come and hear the discussions that the board will be undertaking leading up to our levy in December of 2012. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the state guidelines for surplus funds. In order to achieve the highest rating for fiscal health for school districts, the number 4, you have to maintain a minimum of 25% fund balance. That was a goal that we had early on to get to that, and since then, and there is no statutory maximum for fund balances. This board and boards previous have talked about what is the appropriate level of fund balance to keep on hand, and this board has made the conscious effort and has discussed setting a policy for our fund balances, and that is something we intend to do. So that will also be part of our discussions coming up the next several months, and will also be a part of the discussion as we do our strategic planning. Other than that, like I said, our levy discussions will be occurring the next couple months, and we would encourage you to come and listen to those discussions. We welcome your comments, we welcome questions. Please, anybody who hasn't left us your name and an email address or some way to get in touch with you, we'd be happy to add you a list for updates about the strategic planning or any other updates coming out, newsletters, things like that. And at this point, is there anybody else on the board who'd like to make a comment?
I'll make just a brief comment. I just want to say thank you to everybody who spent obviously a lot of time thinking about what you had to say tonight. It's all very passionate and heartfelt, and we are really listening to all the things that you're saying. We've heard all the comments, we've read all the emails, and we care about all the things that you guys care about. So thank you. We really appreciate your feedback. And please get involved in the strategic plan. You'll be hearing more. There'll be plenty of opportunities for you to serve and give us additional feedback in the future. So thank you very much.
Jane, do you have one more comment?
Yeah, I do want to make a comment because of some of the things we've heard tonight. At the October 9th Committee of the Whole meeting, we will be presenting to the Board of Education various options on how to reduce the levy, how much to reduce the levy, including abatement of bond and interest payments, and how that can not only reduce the levy, but also use up some of our reserves. So please come to the October 9th Committee of the Whole meeting. This will be the exact things we'll be discussing and providing the board some very good options, because they have heard you, and what you've said tonight will play very well into what we're going to discuss on October 9th.
Thanks, Jane. I just wanted to make a comment as well to echo Mark's comments that the commitment that everyone's shown tonight to come out is encouraging. I also appreciate the respectful manner in which all of the comments were made. I think that speaks the volumes about this community and how we deal like grown-ups with grown-up issues. And so I really do welcome each one of you to participate fully in the strategic plan. I think we've already got our first facilities member right there, somebody to help us, Neil, on the facilities planning, because I do think those are significant issues. And so I wanted to point out that everybody made important points, and we hear them, and we are trying through Dr. Sophie to improve the speed with which we communicate. And I can just, if you can continue to address us with that kind of respect, we will continue to give you our attention when you raise these issues. And I do appreciate everyone being here. Anything else?
Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Second? All those in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned. Okay, so we'll take just a minute. We're going to take a 2-minute recess before we start our business meeting. I'm going to give it, he went back down, right?
Some of our other comments, though.
I agree. Like the advice.
Yeah.
Good evening again. This is the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting, September 25th, 2012. Al, can we have a roll call?
Mary Jane Brady.
Present.
Terry Carney. Present. Al Pfeifhouse, present. Eric Wagoner.
Present.
Leanne Charlotte.
Present.
Mark Barry.
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present.
Good. Because tonight we have a visitor here with us, Bill Melsheimer from ECRA Group, which is our strategic planning facilitating group, we're going to move new business to the beginning of the meeting so that he doesn't have to stay here until we finish everything else. So, Bill, would you like to give us a little bit of an update about what we've been doing the last week or two? Sure. Thank you.
Madam President, board members, Dr. Sophie, members of the administration. My name is Bill Melsheimer. I'm a senior associate with the ECRA Group, and I'm pleased to say that we are absolutely delighted to be working with you in creating your vision for the future Lake Bluff School District 65 strategic plan. We're off and running, and last week, as most of you know, we conducted individual interviews with school board members. Yesterday we had an excellent planning meeting with more planning sessions to come. We will be looking at developing and setting up a schedule for focus groups of the various constituency groups. We already have 2 dates to meet with faculty and staff and administration at the middle school as well as the elementary school. And we will also be creating sessions for the various constituency groups, students, parents, community members at large, community organizations, as well as certainly parents and PTA members. So we're in the data gathering phase right now, and with our board interviews, our focus groups. Following that, we will be developing surveys for you to administer to folks in the school, administrators, faculty and staff, support staff, parents, students, and the community at large. Once we gather all of that data, we will analyze it, triangulate it, and present in February of next year a draft of the strategic plan in addition to other deliverables, which would be supporting documents. We'll also be receiving from you archival reports that will help us in our study of School District 65, and we're excited to be a part of this district and looking forward to moving forward. And I'll try to make as many board meetings as I can and give you a brief update of the status of the strategic planning process so that you're aware of what's going on between the ECRA Group and School District 65. So, do you have any questions, comments, feedback thus far?
I think just that, Bill, you and I are meeting Thursday to finish setting focus group dates.
Correct.
And I will actually be working with the district office staff. They don't know this yet, so it'll be a little bit of a surprise. We need to round up all the archival data. Now, I know that having just really learned a lot about the district through my interview process, a lot of the former documents are on the website. As far as the former strategic plan, there was a history document I read through. But we need to start thinking about what we can provide ECRA to give you a good history of the district. So that's something we're going to start work on this week also.
And we'll have that conversation beginning on Thursday, right? Any other thoughts, comments?
Can you describe a little bit for us the involvement the community will have in the strategic planning process and when those various pieces of involvement will occur?
Well, I'm really pleased that we're off to a rapid start, and our hope is that much of this can be done in terms of face-to-face meetings with the various constituency groups during the month
of October, and possibly carrying into early November for purposes of scheduling and rescheduling. It's really critical that as many voices are heard, and during the course of our interviews with each of you individually, you made it abundantly clear that you wanted strong participation from all elements and all bodies within this community, and so I applaud you for that. In terms of involving community members, parents, we will be setting up focus groups to encourage them to participate, and invitations will be sent out. No doubt that you will be publicizing the strategic planning process very soon, and we've sent you some documents along those lines, and so we want to create a lot of interest, a lot of enthusiasm, and more importantly, a lot of participation. Once again, we need voices to be heard. In addition to the focus groups, the surveys will go out and people will have an opportunity to respond to the questions that will be presented. In addition to that, they will have an opportunity to respond openly at the end of the survey so that we can have access to their good thoughts, words, and ideas on a personal level.
And then, Bill, to take it a step further, after the board has tweaked and we have the framework for our plan, that's when we start talking about phase 3 with your
That's correct. That's correct.
And that's where I see a lot of our community that has the specialty areas, either in finance or facilities. They can help us head up different teams for the different types of.
Right. Phase 3 is where you develop tactics, and that's the execution of tactics and action plans. And who's involved in that? Who's responsible for that? What are the resources? What are the timelines? Because a strategic plan is essentially a dream with a deadline. We want to look like, we want to function, we want to behave, we want to perform like such and such at this particular point in time. And you know, that's your effort during phase 3 to make that become a reality.
Great. Anything else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to superintendent's report.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
You are welcome to stay.
He said good night.
Yeah.
My report is very short tonight. I do want to make a couple comments as I visit classrooms. It's exciting for me to see both the integration of technology and the common language of the Common Core. Last Friday, I was over at the middle school, and I saw an outstanding WebQuest lesson on, they had pictures of mountains, and the kids had to go in and label the mountains using technology. But then they had to tie that in with a literature assignment of something that they were reading that was applicable to these mountains. And it was one of those things I knew I had to get to more classrooms, but it was so interesting for me. And the kids were all into it. I learned a lot from the kids on technology. And our teachers, I've just been really excited to hear them talk. Oh, good, here's a Common Core prompt. So we're really, Joanne's done a lot of work with the teachers, and I'd like to recognize her with that. I'd also like to share that, Jane has put in a lot of work on the budget, and I applaud her. She's really getting materials together and projections for the upcoming levy. And Ann has been great with updating with me on special ed situation, and helping me with other history lessons here. So it's been a busy time at the district office. And that concludes my report. Okay, told you it'd be short.
President's report, mine is also short. I would again like to thank the members of our community who attended our budget meeting this evening prior to this meeting. We really appreciate the interest in our schools by our community, and we appreciate all the ideas and input that were shared with us tonight. So thank you again to all who attended. The Board of Education met again last evening with our field representative from Illinois Association of School Boards. That's our 6th time in 18 months. We have really focused on good governance and learning our roles in policymaking and in communication, and we're working to be better and quicker with the things that people most want to hear and know about. So these are things that we're working within our own board and administration, but also working with the Illinois Association of School Boards in terms of their view of how school boards should function. But one of the important things we were reminded of last night by Ms. Toney is that the District 65 Board of Education is well on its way to earning IASB recognition for our leadership and governance skill building that we've been doing, and for our participation in the local, regional, and state workshops and conferences. So we've worked really hard, and it's very likely that we're going to be earning that recognition from the Illinois State School Board Association. So we're proud of that. And the last thing I wanted to remind the community that this evening is our action meeting, the fourth Tuesday of the month, and on the second Tuesday of every month, aside from the holiday months, we have our committee of the whole meeting. So as we've said a couple of times this evening and at other meetings, those are meetings where we often have discussions and presentations and more discussions about items that will be coming up for votes, sometimes not for votes, sometimes there are other types of business, but both meetings are open to the public and we encourage the community to attend. So thank you. That concludes my report. And I think we have a PTO report.
Hello. This is the PTO report for September. Our fall fundraiser is, this is our final week. It's the Innisbrook Fall Fundraiser. And just to remind everyone that we will not be having our silent auction this spring, so we'll be relying on this fundraiser heavily to support all of our PTO programs. The directory access information went out last week. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback about the online directory option, and we will be selling print copies of the directory at cost through the web store eventually. People need to go on and verify their information before we can generate the print version. Pumpkin Fest is just around the corner, October 12th and 13th. You can sign up in the web store to run the Pumpkin Chase 5K or the Family Fun Run. You can also find information there about the two-day event schedule. We're still in desperate needs of volunteers to take a 1.5-hour shift running games, handing out prizes, or selling lunch. There's free lunch for all volunteers. Again, you can sign up in the PTO web store. Our summer reading program has wrapped up. The elementary school had about 60 participants who read just over 202,000 minutes. The middle school had 35 participants who read just under 170,000 pages. The K through 2 top readers received a $25 Visa gift card, and the second place received a $20 Lake Bluff Lake Forest Chamber gift certificate. Those winners were Sophia Durante, Nora Sharman in kindergarten, Andrew Marsh and Mac Jones in first grade, Sam Westerman and Jordan Siebold in second. Grades 3 through 5 received a $50 Visa gift card for first place and $25 gift card for second place. Those winners were, and I'm going to mispronounce her name, I'm sure, Rachel Tarkson and Eva Sharman in third grade. Fourth grade winners were Noah Siebold and Skylar Croonin. Fifth grade winners were James Lau and Leon Durante. 6th through 8th graders received a $100 Visa gift card for first place and a $50 gift card for second place. Those winners were Benjamin Siebold and Fiona Nugent for 6th grade, Eliza Hubler and Kari Rhodes for 7th grade, and Sarah Kudemeyer and Tommy Block for 8th grade. I have to say, of the LBMS 170,000 pages, the 6th grade alone read 111,000 pages. So the 6th graders really carried that. Yay. Yay, 6th graders. And I have 2 of them. Unfortunately, neither school reached the goals that we set to earn ice cream for the whole school. But every student that participated at LBES received a Donati's gift certificate for gelato. And every LBMS participant received a voucher for the delicious food in the school cafeteria. They were very excited about it. The LBS Book Fair is October 18th and 19th. We need volunteers to help with this event. Again, information is on the PTO website. Our social events, an update, the Kindergarten Ice Cream Social was held on September 6th and was a success. On the 14th, we had a wonderful evening get-together for new parents that also was well received and looks to be hopefully an annual event. The seventh grade, for LBMS, there was a seventh grade coffee held on September 20th at the home of Jennifer Hardy. And there'll be an eighth grade beach party Friday, October 18th, 5:30 to 8:30 at the South Shelter. They're planning more events for each grade, and that's underway with news to come. Also coming soon, yearbooks for both schools will be on sale soon in the web store, and look for our Dine and Donate restaurant of October will be announced soon. And finally, I wanted to introduce someone. Come on up. This is Ann Stewart. She is our district VP and will be taking over for me next year.
Oh.
So welcome, Ann.
Thank you.
And she'll be doing some of these reports as well, so you'll see her at the coming meetings.
Thanks, Ann.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thanks, Kate.
I will tell you, if you have not seen the app for the directory, it is awesome, awesome. And if you have not downloaded, do it. If I can do it as fast as I did it, it's easy.
Gene, that brings up a question to me. Some of us do not have children in the district currently. Will we be able to get access to the app, or?
That's something, I will talk to Kate about that,
Yeah.
and I will get back to you. But she's done a fantastic job, and as I was thinking about this after their PTO meeting, it's been 22 years since I did the directory for my kids, and I will date myself enough to tell you I did it on an Apple IIe computer. So I had one. But I look at where we went. In fact, I was showing my husband the directory on my iPhone, and it's fascinating. You guys do a great job, so we appreciate that.
Thank you very much. So, okay, moving on to communication and questions from visitors. Do we have any comments or questions? No? Okay, then we will move on to action. Our first item of action is personnel recommendations. Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the personnel recommendations as per the attachment?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and on the attachment we have the employment of Tim Labrie as a middle school special education aide at $10.51 per hour, 177 days per year, effective 8/27/2012. That's it? Okay. Any questions or discussion? Al, can we have a roll call?
Eric Wagner.
Yes.
Leanne Charlo.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mary Jane Brady.
Yes?
Terry Carney.
Yes.
Al Pfeifhaus, yes.
Okay. Next is the approval of educational support personnel seniority list. Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the educational support personnel seniority list as per the attachment?
So move.
Second.
Second. Would Jane or Jean explain to us what the list is? I think we all do know what it is, but we get this each year, correct? The updated?
It is every year, and I don't know if it's school code or the Illinois Educational Labor Relations. But we do have to post a seniority list every year. And I found by coming here that every district does it at different times of the year, but we are mandated to do it.
Any other questions or discussion?
Ready? Terry Carney.
I'll just do a roll call.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Mary Jane Brady.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlo.
Yes.
Eric Wagner.
Yes.
Al Pfeifhaus, yes.
Okay. Next is the approval of the budget for 2012-13. Could I have a motion that the Board of Education approves the budget for 2012-13 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Jane, I just have a question. You said that there's a possibility to amend the budget.
Yes.
How big of a change would require an amendment?
More than 10% change in the total expenditures.
So if there was,
In one fund.
so if there was a legislation to shift the pension liability back to the school districts and say it was retroactive to the beginning of the school year, and we think that might be $1.6 million or more, would we be required to amend the budget for that?
We would want to amend it, yes, absolutely.
So we'd have to go through the same process, but.
It's the same process. You post the budget 30 days, you have a public hearing, and then you adopt the budget.
And we don't have any new news on that. I think the legislature said they would defer that until January,
That's what we're hearing
as of December, late. January.
Yes,
after the elections, for sure. Thanks.
during lame duck session.
Jane, during your discussion, you mentioned the one-time expenses that were causing some increase in expense this year over last year. Because, of course, we know that the collective bargaining agreement didn't make up that large of change, right? That we have some of.
Our salary increase is like a 2% increase overall.
Exactly. So there's some other changes there that make up the increase. And you listed them. I'm not sure I got them all, but I know you listed some professional education costs that were one-time.
Because of the curriculum cycle that I think the board adopted last year, we're revisiting, trying to remember, language arts, social studies, and math. And so we're purchasing a lot of new curriculum materials in those subject areas, and we're bringing in a lot of professional development in those subject areas.
So that the teachers know how to use the curriculum materials that we purchase.
That is
The
correct.
finance person, yes, that she can answer that kind of
Correct.
question.
So we have consultants that not only teach our teachers how to use the materials, but actually practice and help coach them so that there's no time wasted on the new materials.
I know we also had expense on the teacher's evaluation training that you all did in the summertime. Is that was one of the one-time expenses, or no?
No, that
was.
That didn't cost you anything. That was just administrators sitting in there.
That was
Just
all
a
their
mandate.
time and effort.
Yes.
Okay, so it's
But
primarily-
we've added $50,000 for the strategic planning. I budgeted $50,000 for that, not knowing where you would end up contract-wise. There is the website development.
Okay.
Paying Bill Chapin's contract to get the new website up and running. That's a kind of a one-time only this year. Those are.
And then the curriculum that you mentioned, those are the major.
Those were
pieces.
major, yes.
The curriculum is a major. I think.
And you wouldn't, that curriculum change takes us for several years going forward, right?
You will have. I think next year.
She's
I
working
believe
on
there's some
language
more-
arts still.
I was thinking math, but I don't think it'll be to the extent that it is this year, in my talking with Joanne, and then I think we're on a cycle there.
And all of that is necessitated by the curriculum in any case, right? Because as of 2014, our children
I can't respond to that.
are tested to the Common Core,
Yes.
right?
But also, when you have a curriculum cycle, you want to get in that cycle, and I can't remember here if we're on a 7 or 8 year cycle, but you always want to make sure that you constantly review and update what you're teaching the
Ideally,
kids.
not all in the same year, though.
No,
right?
that's why you
And
adopted your
so-
cycle.
And so our Common Core curriculum dates that are coming up in 2014, by which our children need to be tested on that Common Core, are going to require that
Absolutely.
we're out of cycle, as I understand it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or discussion on the budget?
I just wanted to comment really quickly on the curriculum piece of it, because I'm very excited about the Common Core work that's being done, and I think it's neat to see, all of that happening. I'm excited what that's going to do for our kids. I just wanted to say, I was at a parent night, and the teacher showed a map of all of the states that have adopted the Common Core curriculum. And it's, it's a substantial portion of the United States, and I don't remember the exact number of states, but.
I think it's 28. 28 adopted Common Core, and then there's another 20-some that adopted another thing very similar to Common Core.
I think it's remarkable, and I'm glad to see that we're, making progress with it and sort of, would you say, staying at the forefront, or, so I'm pleased with that.
It's very important that, Common Core increases rigor in our curriculum. And it also increases what all the educators are calling perseverance, because our children somehow over the past couple of decades they don't know the word perseverance, and they don't know how to persevere. And so even in a math problem, I've been in sessions where they've talked about, we would learn to kind of struggle through a math problem and still work through to solve it. Our kids stop and get very frustrated. And so a lot of the Common Core is rigorous, but it's fun. It keeps the kids engaged, and it really helps with the perseverance piece, which is big right now. So.
Other comments? Okay. Al, can we have a vote?
Good. Terry Carney.
Yes.
Al Pfeifhouse, yes. Eric Wagner.
Yes.
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mary Jane Brady.
Yes. Okay. Approval of administrator and teacher salary and benefits for 2011-12.
Eric?
Do we need to read this?
Second.
Mark?
Right, let's see, hang on. The motion is that the Board of Education approves the administrator and teacher salary and benefits for 2011-12 as presented.
We've got Eric moved and Mark seconded.
Okay. And then in terms of a little bit of discussion about what this is?
As we posted on the agenda, and this district has already done this, but now it's the law. Public Act 97-256 states that by October 1st of each school year, the base salary and benefits of the district superintendent, all administrators and teachers employed by the district are to be reported to the Illinois State Board. There's a form that they've created for this purpose, and in completing this form, the district should report the actual amount paid out to the employee in the previous fiscal year. So I know some of you had said to me, I think the agenda was wrong, Jean, it said 2011-12. It's what we're reporting out what was paid the previous year.
The actual pay.
The actual pay, correct. So for purposes of the ISBE report, benefits include vacation days, sick days, bonuses, annuity, and retirement enhancements. And I made an executive decision that as people review our agendas, this was very complicated, so I just cut and paste the actual law into the agenda so people can understand what exactly the motion was.
Okay, any questions or discussion on that? Okay. Al?
Ready? Al Pfeifhouse, yes. Terry Carney.
Yes.
Mary Jane Brady.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Eric Wagner.
Yes.
Okay. Consent agenda. Each month, the board can choose to place items that are either recurring, such as the approval of previous minutes, annual responsibilities, such as the appointment of a school treasurer for the next year, or items of a regulatory nature that must by law be approved by the board. These items can be combined into one motion and passed together as part of the consent agenda. The board regularly screens its consent agenda each month and removes motions from that if, in the board's judgment, they might otherwise require discussion or public comment. Tonight, the items on our consent agenda are the regular meeting minutes for August 28th, 2012, the committee of the whole meeting minutes for September 11th, 2012, destruction of closed session tapes for March 22nd, 2011, approve the application for recognition of schools for 2012-13, the P card report, the bills payable, the treasurer's report, and activity reports. Could I have a motion to approve those items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion?
I just want to comment that I think the minutes are much improved from any previous version, so I appreciate the work that Liz and Jean and anybody else are doing, because I think in the spirit of being more transparent, as we've talked about doing, clearly the minutes are more robust and certainly give the reader more insights into what was discussed as opposed to a motion was raised and approved. So I appreciate the work that went into that.
Thank you, Liz.
I agree.
Excellent.
Anything else? Okay, Al?
Okay. Excuse me. Leanne Charlotte.
Yes.
Eric Wagner.
Yes.
Al Pfeifhouse, yes. Terry Carney.
Yes.
Mary Jane Brady.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Okay. We took care of new business.
I have a couple announcements for old business.
Okay, and so now we'll move to old business.
I just want to remind everybody that you have homework assignments for the next committee of the whole meeting that is on top of going through the packet and preparing for the board meeting. I'm pleased to announce that one of your board members has completed his assignment and has received an A+ already, and that would be Mark Berry.
How do you complete it?
He actually wrote a report, and I asked him to bring it to the meeting. I'm just reminding you that peruse those websites from other school districts. You're going to learn a lot about how they do their minutes, how they do their agendas, maybe how they structure their meetings. For instance, one of you had brought up audience comments at the beginning and end of the meetings. Sometimes you can have an audience comment that's specific to agenda topics. There's all kinds of things. So as we're looking to restructure meetings in a way to make sure that we do business in an efficient and effective manner and be very transparent, it's important that you look at some of those districts and look at some of our neighboring districts. Look at those districts that you think we want to be role models to. And as you're doing that, take note of things that are on their website that you think would be nice for us to take a look at on our own website. That would be your extra credit question, because you've got to get on the websites anyway. So you do have homework, and Mark will, he's already received an A+ for that.
Just to be clear, there was no extra credit for getting it done early, though, right?
Oh, that's the teacher's pet designation.
All right. Other old business?
That's it.
Anybody else? I think we were going to talk about our committee. The whole meeting's coming up at this point,
Yes.
too, but we've mentioned them several times already, so. Anything else? All right, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.